I'm working with folks who struggle with procrastination and overwhelm and helping them to create systems and structures that work for them so that they can get work done and avoid burnout. I think a lot of it has to do with my own diagnosis. I like to call it like little boy ADHD. I didn't do a good job of not moving during this podcast, obviously.
It's interesting to hear you talk about it because you really have a passion for wellness, and that means a lot of different things,
Right.
but sort of you're in the crux of this.
Yeah, totally.
Kaitlyn Chock is a communications strategist for WebMD. Kaitlyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, and I think I know what a communication strategist does generally speaking, but for the viewers at home, why don't you just tell us, what are you doing day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a communication strategist for WebMD Health Services, which is a corporate wellness company, my job is to get my clients' employees to engage in their health programs. So what that looks like on a day-to-day is creating an annual strategic communications plan for the year and then executing on that plan. So I am communicating with our client. I'm the go-between between the client and our in-house design team and copywriter. And then we have our own project managers on the design side. And I connect everyone together so that we get these projects out to pretty massive amounts of people.
And I think of this as account-based marketing, sort of to give it some sort of a category, because you're really trying to, this isn't like necessarily marketing for WebMD, right? You're really trying to reach specific accounts that you guys serve.
Exactly. Well said.
And how many different accounts roughly, and like how many different people do you think you're sort of focused on?
Yeah, so that has really varied from my time here, or during my time here, I should say. I've been at WebMD for about 3 years. And at one point, I had a bunch of smaller accounts, so I was working with about like 9 or 10 accounts. Now it's closer to 5, and I have bigger accounts that I work with. But each of those account teams, sometimes there's like duplicates because our CSMs, our customer success managers, they also have a pretty big account load as well. So there's some duplicates, like I work with some CSMs on multiple clients. But in each of those account teams, there's probably about like 5 to 8 individual people that I work with. So not quite 40 people on my account team side. And then we have all of our designers and our copywriter and our contract copywriter and our project managers, and then all the other strategists. So there's a decent amount of people that I am talking to on a day-to-day.
Some of these are large companies, right?
Yeah.
That you guys are serving. Some of these accounts are large, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Fortune 500.
It's safe to say, like Fortune 500,
Yes.
Fortune 1000.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I guess help me understand, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Tell me a little bit more about the audience that you're trying to reach, like, and what do you want them to do?
Yeah, totally. So our clients have their wellness programs. And so we are providing a wellness platform with WebMD One for them to use in their wellness programs. And so we are targeting those employees, and it really depends on each individual client's specific program, whether we're targeting people that are just enrolled in medical or if we're targeting the entire population, because some of our accounts are incentive-based. So you have to be enrolled in medical in order to earn an incentive. For some, you can earn an incentive just by participating in the program by being an employee. So what you have access to depends on your participation for the program here.
I think there's one of the challenges with sort of account-based marketing, or, you really have like a specific group of people that you're trying to connect with within a company. You kind of have to, there's a lot of nuance, right? Like you have to really be able to speak their language. This isn't like marketing Coca-Cola, to the world. It's pretty specific.
It does have to be pretty specific. And each of our accounts are wildly different. So like, for example, like I work with people in the finance industry. I work with people in gas and oil. I work with like health insurance companies. So all of those employees speak very different languages, and the way that the companies talk to their employees is different.
How do you manage all that?
That's a great question. My role doesn't necessarily involve a lot of copywriting. So it's really just like I need to stay in control of knowing the tone and voice so that I can read over what the copywriter writes. But in my specific role, because I have a writing background, I have like sign off essentially. I guess to do a little bit more writing. I think part of it is like having really good account teams that know the client super well, so they can also help me make sure everything is in line. Right. But yeah, I guess it's just like a matter of learning the clients and working with them and getting a feel of them.
It makes me think of, authenticity is really important. And like, you really do have to understand your client at a very deep level in order to speak their language. Yeah. So on one hand is like, you really have to like you said, you have to understand your client because each client's different.
Right.
There's a lot of, that takes some work, that takes some learning, that takes some getting to know people, some relationship building in order for you to be able to create communications that are actually effective. And then it's like a scale thing. It's like, how do you keep it all yes. on message, yes. consistent, yes. manage all the pieces? There's sort of two different parts to the puzzle, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that you and your team know well.
One of the things I'd love to hear from you is like, what are some of the ways that you go about, how do you make sure that these are successful campaigns? Because at the end of the day, you're creating campaigns, right, over a period of time to communicate with your client. What are some of the things that you're doing to make sure that these campaigns you guys are putting out to clients, your customers, are effective?
That's a great question, Matt. I really appreciate that. So I would say a lot of it has to do with checking our results. Like, are people, for example, like with emails, that's the easiest thing to tell. Like, are people opening the emails? Can we see if they're clicking on things? Like, is it driving program participation? And then mailers, depending on the specific client, they generally have a pretty good chance of like increasing participation in the program. So we are working with our customer success managers to see how certain things we're sending out are or are not moving the needle. And then a lot of it is, fortunately, with accounts that I work with, there are specific people that are assigned the wellness program. So these people know the program really well, and they have people on the ground that they can ask about how things are going. Like we have wellness champions, for example, with some of our clients. And so those are people like employees within these businesses that have volunteered to be an ambassador for the wellness program. So they have a really good feel of what's going on within the actual company themselves and see like how people are responding to certain things. So they've been really helpful. And then some of my accounts also, and this is like an upgraded service, have dedicated wellness staff, DWS. And so those are WebMD employees that are embedded into the company. I made that sound like a spy mission, but they like work out of our clients' offices. And so they are interacting daily with employees. And so they can build rapport there and have really good relationships with people that are physically there at the offices. And that is so helpful when we have a DWS person. But if not, then it's just looking at the results and seeing like, oh, okay, we sent this mailer out to homes and the goal is get people to register. Are people registering?
So you're doing mailers, which is a pretty traditional sort of marketing strategy. I love hearing how you actually have people, top secret agents planted in there. But I mean, it makes sense, right, to have a champion or an advocate and how that would be effective, somebody on the ground. What other things are you doing? Obviously, we've worked together and we've helped create some content. Are there certain pieces of other types of content you're creating that are effective?
Yeah, well, video is great. It's a great way to see, and I know some of the projects like you've worked on have included actual employees, and so people can like recognize people that they know. which is wonderful. We have done a mix of stock footage and illustration, and those have gone over really well with our population. So, for example, one of our clients, they have these screens at their offices, and so we've been able to play the videos so that we can educate people on how to get their points, how to sign up for a health coach, like why it's important to have a health coach. And so we've been able to push those videos like physically on campus, which is like pretty cool. And then also on the portal and like through emails and through Yammer, like the internal communications.
And how do you sort of measure success with video?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's kind of similar to how we were measuring success with our mailers. We're looking at participation and seeing, okay, these videos were sent out at this time. Like, has there been a spike in traffic to the website? Has there been a spike in health coaching? We know that for this client in particular, there's generally like a dip in the summer. And so we have videos that we're going to push out during the summer to see if we can prevent that dip from happening and instead get a bump.
How do you know that it's a good tool to use? I mean, maybe it's just anecdotal, but like, why do you think it's a tool that you would go back to using again?
Yeah, I think going back to the metrics is really helpful, but also I do think that those anecdotal notes are really helpful, especially since with this client in particular that we're talking about, we have both wellness champions and we have our like embedded DWS staff folks, so that they have a really good idea of how these videos are being received, and so we can get that real-time feedback.
You're always looking for new ways, innovative ways, whether it's video or beyond. Do you have ideas of what that might be?
We are doing, for this particular client that we've done videos for, we're creating a cookbook for their audience. Things that have to do with recipes, things that have to do with cooking have been historically really popular. And so we thought that we could use a cookbook to showcase the diversity within the company and showcase like cultural recipes. So people sharing things that their family has been eating for certain holidays, for different just days of the year, to give our clients' employees an opportunity to kind of show their heritage. And so that's a fun idea of something that we've been trying. Sometimes we've done some fun mailers. For one of our clients, we did desk drops. So instead of sending out mail to homes, or I guess I should say in addition to sending out mail to homes, for new employees, we got them a little like a bag that had the wellness program branding on it and a postcard with info about the program, and that went over really well. So kind of just like more simple things, just different ways to engage people and hit them in different ways than just email and home mailers.
Oh, awesome. But when you think about your career or the work you're doing, what's on your mind? What are your thought bubbles going to say?
Yeah.
I read them.
Well, what comes to mind really is that something that I'm doing on the side is ADHD coaching. So I'm working with folks who struggle with procrastination and overwhelm and helping them to create systems and structures that work for them so that they can get work done and avoid burnout. And so that's a project that I'm really passionate about that I've been doing in addition to my comms work. And also just thinking about neurodiversity and how we as a society talk about and treat people with any sort of disabilities, but especially those with invisible disabilities, and how that compares to visible disabilities versus invisible disabilities, and even just the word disability is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And how that all kind of ties into like corporate wellness and like what is our approach.
It's interesting to hear you talk about it because you really have a passion for wellness, and that means a lot of different things, but sort of you're in the crux of this.
Yeah, totally.
And so what's behind the passion for specifically serving people with ADHD?
Yeah, That's a great question. I think a lot of it has to do with my own diagnosis. So I have ADHD and I was diagnosed late in life. I have combined type, which means that I am both like have the hyperactive side and the inattentive side, so the like whirly brain. And I like to call it like little boy ADHD because it's what you think of like classic. The like fidgety. I mean, I didn't do a good job of not moving during this podcast, obviously. Um, and so it's something that I have learned to something being like my ADHD is something that like I've learned to work with, especially being in like a corporate setting and like thinking about like professionalism and like what does that mean and like how does that look is something that I've also been like toying with.
Yeah. And what have you arrived at any conclusions or any ideas or insights?
I think it's I don't know that I've come to like any specific conclusions. I just think that we need to think more deeply and more broadly about how we treat other people in this world just in general, but two, how we talk about like disabilities in the workplace and thinking of like finding accommodations for people when we're thinking about disabilities, rather than thinking about like, oh, how can we fix this person to fit into the mold that society has given us? How do we structure our society in a way that's beneficial for everyone? And, you know, it makes me think of like designing for autism, that sort of like movement about how if you design a place for someone who is autistic, it ends up benefiting neurotypical people as well.
Is that something that, you know, you're learning, kind of like digging into and learning more about, or do you have some specific ways you're hoping to like participate, I guess?
This is something that I'm learning more about and sort of just digging into and trying to figure out how I can bring these insights to my work at WebMD, especially because we are a corporate wellness company. So thinking about neurodiversity is something that is relevant to workplace wellness.
What have you learned, I guess, along your path in your profession within wellness?
I think learning to work with everyone's differences is something that's like really crucial. I think about wellness from like an accessibility standpoint and how are we making wellness approachable and accessible to our communities.
And what about just for your own career perspective? Have you learned anything along this path in your own career that you want to apply to your future self?
Ooh, that's a beautiful question, Matt. I really like that. Finding grace, like having grace for yourself and kindness and compassion, in the way, I don't know if this is really answering your question, but in the way that you like show love and care for others to make sure that you're turning that inward and focusing on yourself. Our marketing director at WebMD, that's something that she's like really been pushing. She's been trying to create opportunities for us to like check in with ourselves. And so that's something that's like important to WebMD as well. When you asked that last question and I thought about like accessibility and like care and concern, how are we turning that in on ourselves? Because, you know, make sure you put your oxygen mask on before helping others, because otherwise you will really die. You won't be able to continue to grow in your career if you are burnt out.
I love that. Yeah, I use that analogy quite a bit too. It's like, it really is helpful. It really is meaningful, and it really is true. Got a oddball question here for you.
Okay.
What is a word or phrase we should no longer be saying in the workplace?
You know, as soon as I get off this call, I'm going to think of a better one. But all that's coming to mind right now is circle back.
We could always circle back on it later.
We could.
You know, if you think about another one, we can circle back on it. See what I did there? Well, maybe what should we say instead of circle back?
Oh, that's a great question.
Can we say like follow up? I mean, that's like boring, but that's the same thing, right? Yeah. Aren't we essentially saying like, hey, let's come back to that? You could say that without using a shape.
I don't know that my issue was the shape, but now that
it wasn't the shape.
Out loud, I'm like, maybe there is a reason that we just use these quick little phrases because they're cute and they get the point across. Because like, yeah, I'll follow up with you on that. It does take a lot more words than circle back. So maybe that hate was for naught.
Maybe, but maybe we just need to find a cuter shape.
A cuter shape?
A new shape.
A new shape?
Yeah. What's the cutest shape?
The cutest shape.
Can you think of a cute shape?
Circles are kind of cute. Hearts
Circles are great. Hearts are the best, though, aren't they?
Hearts are the best.
My 14-month-old is a big fan of like a cube or a 3D shape versus a flat shape. So maybe it's a sphere. A sphere would be a good one. I don't know. We'll circle back on that.
All right.
I guess.
I'll hold you to it.
Okay. Please do. Kaitlyn, this was very fun, very informative. I love to hear about your passion for what you're doing and how you're expressing that, not only in your main job, but some of these other things that you're doing. And it seems like you're in the right place.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. This was really lovely.
Eu fango.